does an end-to-end coverage of big data involve?
So today, if you look at the data processing side of big data, it seems to be dominating the press. But of course, if you look at the end-to-end requirements, you have to also be able to ingest big data, because there's a significant amount of data that's being generated from either sensors or machines or whatever. So you have to be able to ingest the big data. Storage, of course, is a big challenge. Processing it, which as I said is a big bit of the mindshare that's going on, and then all the way through to being able to visualize that big data as well. So the end-to-end would be everything from ingestion all the way through to visualization.
So it's quite a long spectrum that we're talking about here.
It's a long spectrum, but it's one that has had significant amount of investment in certain portions of it. So from an SAP perspective, at least anyway, our goal is to try to create some equality across all of those components of the big data processing side. Okay. So you're not just looking at from one dimension, you can have a look at it across all dimensions.
Now, over the years, many companies and organizations have tried to implement different solutions, different systems, which has created a type of technical debt. How do you declutter that?
It's a great question. So if you take a look at this technology debt, it's been accrued over many years. And functionally, what's happened is that people have been trying to introduce either new solutions or new infrastructure to specifically deal with the pain point of the day. And that unfortunately has resulted in this huge burden of infrastructure that they now have to manage. So the decluttering actually implies that, number one, you have to be able to simplify the landscapes of many of the customers. And number two, you have to be able to do so in a non-disruptive way, because clearly, if you're reliant upon a piece of infrastructure, whatever it may be, whatever it's used for today, you can't just jettison it out of your infrastructure. You've got to be able to replace it, but do so in a way that's going to become that much more easier for the customers to be able to transition to the newer stuff. So we talk about decluttering the landscape and getting rid of the technology debt. We're talking about non-disruptively introducing innovative new processing frameworks, and this will allow customers to be able to deal with the challenging problems of tomorrow, but also ensure that they don't disrupt the problems of today.
What does one of those decluttered solutions look like? I mean, is it simple across the board?
So from an SAP point of view, what we've been focusing on really is a new paradigm in data processing and new data management. And we believe that in-memory represents that opportunity. If you take a look today at the microprocessor evolution that's taken place, I mean, just as a point of view, if you look at today's power consumption of today's modern microprocessors, they operate in probably less than 110 watts, and something that is now able to support, say, 8 or 16 cores in that same power envelope of, say, 110 watts, 3 to 4 years ago, you were actually only able to run a couple of cores, 2 cores. So we're seeing that there's a tremendous more compute power that's available to customers. Okay. And above and beyond that, to be able to have a decluttered solution and having an infrastructure which is based upon in-memory, what it gives us is the ability to be able to unification of, say, OLAP type processing or analytics processing, and also being able to do execution of transactions. So decluttering means simplification of the landscape, collapsing a lot of the redundancy, and having a more unified data management experience. And we believe from an in-memory compute perspective, we have HANA, and HANA is a representation of our next generation compute platform that unifies a lot of this processing.
So last question for you. Let's say technical or technology debt is tackled. What types of problems would you be able to address once that's off the table?
The technology challenges that around today have been around for many years. So the type of problems that we'll be able to solve are really the same challenging problems, but a much lower level of intrusion into the business. And by that I mean, if you imagine that the amount of latency that you generate in the end-to-end processing, getting back to your first question, it's a significant amount of overhead that you generate. So what we'll be able to do is allow customers to shorten the time span between being able to perform a transaction and then being able to harvest insight immediately from that transaction, and allowing customers to be able to deal with the multiple temperatures of data. Imagine over the course of generating and storing a lot of information, you may hold 10 years worth of data. If you look at it from a data lineage point of view, what you don't want to do is to find data has been archived off and becomes inaccessible. So we talk about data temperature, implying that you can go from hot to warm to cool to cold data, and being able to get data to become relevant and hot again. For instance, if there was a regulatory requirement, look at the last 5 years worth of data, you may be going through some compliance checks. Being able to get that information to be brought back very quickly and very efficiently without a lot of customer heavyweight lifting. So the problems that we're going to be able to solve is A, being able to shorten the time frame between transactions and being able to analyze the effects, being able to predict the future, and being able to analyze and look at the social dynamics of data as well.
Well, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. Taking the time.
Thank you.